very good evening and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Somebody told me today that she subscribed all the way from a very far state and it made my day. I'm so grateful. You know I'm talking about you. And I want to say I'm very grateful for everyone that has subscribed to this channel. I don't take your subscription for granted. I am most grateful. I am most honored. And for those that are yet to subscribe, I do sincerely hope that at the end of this video, you're going to subscribe to this channel. You're going to like this channel and you're also going to recommend it to others that you know may benefit from the knowledge that is being shared. So having said that, I want to say a very huge success. I'm wishing you good success for everyone single certificate student that is writing the currently ongoing JAMB exam. One of my students wrote today, and I still have students that are still going to be writing within the week. I want to say, I pray that your JAM comes out in flying colors. I pray that everything you've learned so far so good, you are able to recall all when you get to the hall. I also pray that for those that are yet to write, that you'll be directed aright, even as you read and understand fully what you're reading. Alright, so having said that, today we're going to be looking at a topic in physics, something basic but something important though, because the truth of the matter is that little drops of water make an ocean. So today we're going to be talking about work, energy and power in physics. Work, energy and power. So, alright. So this is actually a build-up to what we already discussed when we talked about heat energy. We talked that heat is a form of energy, but today we're going to be looking at generally what energy really entails. So what I mean is we're going to be looking at the concept of energy. We're going to be looking at the conservation principle and how it relates to work. We're going to be looking at the relationship between work and energy, and then at the end of the day we are going to be wrapping it up with power, when I'm now looking at the time rates at which the work we are talking about is being done. Generally, people talk about work in different ways. So for example, somebody can say, I work with the federal government. Another person can say, I'm a freelancer and I work according to my timing and my hours. I have my time to myself. Another person can say, child training is a major work on mothers. Those are various concepts that work can be defined. But that's not what we talk about when we talk about work in physics. When we talk about work in physics, we are very specific. We are not confused. So somebody can do something that on a general everybody's note, on a general layman note, you say the person is doing work. But in physics, we may just say the person is exerting energy, but work done is zero. So anytime we're talking about work, we are looking at the fact that a force causes a body to change position. So we are looking at, if I apply force on anything, on what I intend to do, for me to say that work is being done, that thing must change its position. It's simple. Just try and picture with me. If I am applying a force to anything, normally you expect that that force is going to cause the body to move. But work is not done until the body changes position. So in physics generally we say that work is said to be done whenever a force is applied on an object that causes that object to move a distance. And this is because for work to be done, it has to be a product of the force applied and the distance moved. So if the distance moved is zero, you should know that the work done is going to be zero. So work generally is said to be done whenever a force moves its point of application in the direction of that force. Okay, so based on this, you know that work is going to be a product of force and distance. So work is a product, mathematically now, is a product of force times distance. Okay, so mathematically, work is a product of force times distance. And that's why I said if there is no distance moved, there is no work done. What that simply means is that if a man applies a force of say 50 Newton on a body and the body did not move any distance, that means my distance moved is equal to 0 meter. At the end of the day, the work done will be equal to 50 times 0, which is equal to 0. No work has been done. Okay, so whenever we are talking about work in physics, we are talking about that if a force was applied on an object, so that's a causative agent, and the force was sufficient enough to cause the object to move a certain distance in the direction of the force. For example, if I'm pushing a person forward, I don't expect the person to be coming backward because my point of application of my force is forward. So the person will generally move in the direction of the force. But if the person is strong enough such that even in my applying force to push the person forward, the person didn't move any distance, I've not done work according to physics. It's dicey because that's not what you understand work to be in general everyday terms. And that's why I'm laying emphasis there. Work is a product of force and distance. If the distance move is 0, the work done is 0. Because by the time you multiply 1 million times 0, it's still going to be 0. So even if you apply a force of 1 million Newton, for example, if I apply a force of say 100 Newton in trying to push a car, and the car didn't move, you may tell me thank you because you feel that I tried my best, I wanted to help you or something. But as far as this is concerned, I've not done work. Okay? Alright. So, very closely, before I move on to energy rather, I'm going to just make case scenarios because this channel is geared towards preparing you for WAEC, NECO and JAM. That's the emphasis, that's the focus, that's the aim. So, you're going to see questions that may range between a man carries a bag of rice. Let's say the bag of rice is so heavy on his head, standing for 2 hours. A woman backing a child in her back, standing at a spot, let's say for even 30 minutes. And then you're going to see a little boy use a cup to serve water and drop the water on the table. And you're going to be asked, which of these case scenarios is work done? No matter what force is involved, if the distance of the force of application is 0, please, no work has been done. So in that case of the man carrying the bag of rice, because the man just put the rice on his head, he didn't move, he hasn't done any work. Do you get? Yes, he has not done any work. He has expanded energy, but the energy he expanded did not do work. And that's how life is generally too. Let me just shift this in because, of course, I know that it's not just your educational aspect. Sometimes in life too, there are some things you do that they don't give you any results. So as far as this is concerned, work done there is equal to 0. Alright, so that was on a lighter note. But for work to be done, the force must move a distance. So even if you are told that a man is carrying a deep freezer on his head, as heavy as it looks like, and as much as your brain will want to tell you that the man has done work, anytime you hear about the force that is applied, the next thing I want you to check for is the distance that the force moved. If the force moved to 0 distance, work done is 0. Are we good to that point? Good. I know you are good students. You're following very closely. So we are good. Alright, so now, there's a very principal and key thing that can enable work to be done. And that's the fact that we do work based on our energy level. What I mean is this. Picture with me a 2-year-old baby wants to carry 25 liters of water, and the water is almost the same height with the baby. He can't carry it because his energy level can't get there. Another thing too is there are times when you have been very hungry, and because you were hungry, your energy level was low. At that particular time, some things you would easily do without stress becomes very difficult to do. Why? Because right there and then, you don't have the energy. So anytime we're talking about energy, it is so closely linked together with work to the extent that they both have the same SI unit. And that's because work can only be done when energy is present. A powerless man can do no work. Do you understand? Good. So, energy and work are closely related together because for work to be done, energy must be present. Okay? So, they also have same SI units based on that relationship. Of course, you should know that. So, what is energy? So generally, we say energy, this is the capacity or the ability to do work. Okay? So say generally that energy is the ability or the capacity to do work. So if you are energetic, it means you have the ability to do work. And if you don't do the work, it's because you're actually just being lazy. It's not because the energy wasn't there. So energy is the capacity to do work. We are going to be going to the mathematical calculations that follow. So please don't be so quick to just, I already know these things. These are just basic concepts so that when we start calculating, you understand and follow. Okay, and then finally, our last terminology for definition is power. Power. And before I give the definition, I want to just make an illustration. If I'm traveling, for example, and I'm using let's say I'm using a car like Corolla, with all due respect, this is not meant to discredit anybody. It's just for illustration purposes. So that's a disclaimer. If I'm traveling, for example, and I'm using a Corolla in a very good highway, let's say the place is very okay, I can drive at any speed I want. And somebody else is using a Ferrari, and both of us are competent drivers, okay? And or let's even say Lamborghini. The power rating of my car, because of the power rating, I may not be able to go at the same speed with the person that is using a Lamborghini. And that is why also that people go for phones with different brands. Sometimes, especially for us that are female, we're looking at the camera quality, what's the megapixel. We may not even be so concerned about the battery. But then camera is a big deal for us. Each phone has its power rating. So anytime we're talking about power, we're talking about the effectiveness of work done. How effective is this device in doing the work I want to get done? How fast? How efficient? how proficient, how is the result, how excellent is it done. Okay, so that's the twin linkage between power. Why oftentimes you see in textbooks they come together, work, energy, and power. If you are able to do work, it means you have energy, but the energy you have, to what degree, to what power, to how effective are you. So anytime we talk about power, we are looking at the time rate at which work is done, how fast this work is done, and how efficient. So power is the time rate of work done. So power becomes work done over time taken. So I already mentioned earlier that the SI unit of work is the joule or the Newton meter, joules or the Newton meter, and that is the same energy with, and that's the same SI unit with energy. So energy also is measured in joules. Power is measured as joules per second since it's the time rate, so it's joules per seconds. We have understood the basic concept that work is a product of force and distance moved by the force in the line of application of the force. And then we know that energy is the ability or the capacity to do work. And then we know that power is the time rate at which work is done. We're going to be taking some calculations now based on the knowledge you already have. But before we do that, I'm going to just list out the various types of energy that we have. So all of these are some forms of energy. So we have kinetic, potential, solar, we have thermal or heat energy, we have electrical energy, and ethereal. All of these different forms of energy, something connects them all, and that thing is called the conservation of energy principle. What that means is that a person can exhibit more than one energy type in a given time frame, and that is easy and possible because energy can be converted. So is the energy that I have based on the food and the nutrient I have that I'm using to talk, to do work, to walk to the board, kinetic. So energy can be converted from one form to another. So generally, the conservation of energy principle states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but energy can always be transformed from one form to another. So energy is always being transformed. So for example, when you have electricity, you can use that electricity that is an electrical energy. You can power on your pressing iron to iron, and that converts into heat energy. Your light bulbs converts to light and heat. Every other thing in between, sound system and all of that. So a person that is satisfied fully, I'm talking about energy wise now, with enough personal potential energy can run a marathon because energy is being converted. So generally we say the conservation of energy principle is that energy is always being converted. No energy is being lost. Okay, so even though the energy that comes into our solar system comes from the sun, you will do that in biology. And then we have primary producers, the plants that trap it through chlorophyll, they do conversions and all of that. Animals get their own energy from the plant as primary consumers. We have secondary consumers, we have scavengers and all of that. I know I'm speaking so many jargon right now, but the whole idea is that energy is always being transformed from one form to another. I hope we get to that point. Good. So now we're going to be doing calculations, some simple calculations actually, on work, energy and power. Very simple calculations. And we're going to use this knowledge of conservation principle to solve some questions. That's why I actually needed to bring this. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I saw some questions in JAM past question while coaching my students in preparing them for this exam, and I saw questions that all you needed to know how to do was to know that kinetic energy can be equal to potential energy. Oh, that was all you needed. And so that's why. And so, for example, this energy conservation principle is oftentimes illustrated by the pendulum. So, let's assume I have a pendulum bulb here. You know, at various moments of oscillation, the bulb is going to be locating various points. So, let's say this is my pendulum at various points. At various points. Okay. So, we said potential energy is energy at rest, while kinetic energy is energy in motion. So, when the pendulum bulb is here, you observe that it rests momentarily. So, if you are like me that played very well while you were young, you would have observed that when you swing a ball, it will swing this way, pause a little, and then swing back, pause a little. So, those points of it pausing are these particular points. At this point, kinetic energy will be equal to 0 because there is no motion, it's at rest, momentarily. Okay? Then, you see, it has a certain distance from the, let's say this is my datum level. There's a certain distance and this is my h, my height. So for potential energy, we said it's mgh, the mass of the body being m. So where m is mass, mass of body, g is equals to acceleration due to gravity. It equals oftentimes taken as 10 meters per second square. And then my h is the vertical height. And v, of course, is velocity. Velocity of motion. So at this point, when the ball stays to rest momentarily before coming back, I know that the velocity here is going to be 0 because the ball is not moving. So that automatically makes my kinetic energy to be 0. Okay? And at this point also, my height from the datum level is maximum. So at this point, I'm going to have maximum potential energy. Same applies here. P is equals to maximum, K equal to 0. And at this point, the ball is going to be at its peak because it's coming with all the speed it has accumulated. So at this point, my kinetic energy is going to be maximum. Why? Because my h here, my height, the difference between the datum level is 0. So my potential energy, PE, will be equal to 0. So do you understand now? I've seen this as a question in some of our past questions. That's why I needed to attend to it before going to the calculation of work and then some forms of energy and then power. So at this point, it's having maximum height. So at every other point, it's going to have a combination of KE and PE. So at this point, it will have KE and PE at this point, but this is the maximum point, and this is maximum KE. So this is basically how this simple pendulum illustration tells us how energy conversions take place and how the fact that in the entire system, potential energy is always being converted to kinetic energy and vice versa. So energy is being transformed from one form to another. Okay, so very briefly, we're just going to be taking the examples on work, questions that borders on work, energy, and power, and we'll call it a day for today. Okay, question says, a force of 50 Newton is applied on a stationary body of mass 10 kg. What is the work done if the body remains stationary? So because the body remains stationary, what that simply tells me is that the body did not move any distance. So anytime we talk about stationary things, we're talking about things that are at rest. So we have a whole branch of physics that is dedicated towards studying static electricity. So that one we're talking about electricity at rest. But in this case, my body remains stationary. So that means work done, which equals to F times D, equals to 50 times 0 equals to 0 joules. So no work has been done. Secondly, okay, so question 2 says, a body of mass 10 kg falls freely under gravity from the top of a tree 100 meters high. Calculate its velocity just before it hits the ground. So I told you that there are questions that will demand your knowledge of the conservation principle, and this is one of them. So I've always advocated that whenever you're given a question in physics, the first thing I want you to do is to write out your data and then know what you're looking for, so that in knowing what you have, you can know the formula you're expected to use. So here we were given the mass as 10 kg. We're given our height h. So the height the body is going to fall from is the height of the tree, and it's 100 meters. We were not given g because we are expected to know that g is acceleration, said it fell freely under gravity. So g will be 10 also. 10 meters per second square. But we are asked to find v. Velocity is equals to unknown. So here we are going to equate both equations. Potential energy while falling is equal to the kinetic energy of the body. Therefore, mgh should be equal to half mv square. That means 10 times 10 times 100 should be equals to 1 over 2 times the mass 10 again times v square. So 2 cancels 10 gives me 5. So this should give us 1 and 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that means 10,000 is equals to 5v square. And therefore, this square should be equal to 10,000 rather, divided by 5. 5 into 10, 2. Then you write down your zeros. Therefore, v will be equals to the square root of 2,000. Whatever that gives you calculator-wise becomes your answer. Okay, so this is the way you can use the conservation principle to look for from the known to the unknown. So you know that you can find your potential energy based on the data you are given, and you can equate it to your kinetic energy and be able to find your velocity. This goes both ways. So you can also be given every data needed to find kinetic energy, and you are expected to make that data, find your kinetic energy, equate it to a potential energy, and find whatever you are demanded to find. Oftentimes it is going to be the height. Since the mass is constant for both bodies, it's the same body, so it's the same mass. And then gravity is a constant normally, and of course the height is the only varying difference between them. Okay, so we'll take one more example on power, and we'll call it a day. A boy of mass 5 kg climbs up 20 stairs, each of 2 meters. If he arrives at the top of the stairs after 5 minutes, calculate the work done and the power of the boy. Okay, so if you see this question now, you will see that they didn't give us the force, and it's intentional because I wanted to point this out. Anytime you are given mass and you are given distance and you're asked to calculate work done, they expect you to know that F, which is force, is equals to mass times acceleration due to gravity. So you do F is equals to ma, so my force should be 5 times acceleration, which is always taken as 10, to give me 15 Newton. Do we get? Good. So if you are given only the mass of the body, please multiply whatever mass you are given by 10 to make it a force, not just. So don't be tempted to calculate with just the value you are given, that you are given 5 kg. No. If you are calculating for work done, you know work done is force times distance. And force itself is mass times acceleration due to gravity. Okay, that's weight, mg or ma. So good. This gives us our force. And then in this place also, it wasn't clearly given that the height or the distance the boy moved is 2 meters. The question says 20 stairs, each of 2 meters. What this means is that what the boy is climbing, each of the stair is 2 meters. So if he's climbing 20 of that, they expect you to multiply the 20 by 2 to know the total height the boy would have climbed. Do you understand? Okay. So my distance becomes 20 times 2 meters to give me 40 meters. If you don't do all of these preliminary calculations before you just go and do work done equals to force times distance, your answer is going to be very wrong. Okay? And just as a tip for YX students and JAM students, including ECHO, even your wrong answer is going to be part of the options there. So it's not just to say that I solved and my answer was part of the option. The question should be, is your answer the correct option? Because even people that are going to solve with 5 kg, I can guarantee you that your answer that you're going to obtain is going to be part of the option. That's the way exams are designed. Okay? Alright, so I can now come and say work done equals to force times distance, which should now be equal to 50 times 40. So 4 times 5 should give me 20. Then I can write my remaining zeros. Joules. And this can be expressed in kilojoules by writing 2.0 times 10 raised to the power 3 kilojoules. So to find my power is simply work done over time. So it should be 2000 over time taken 5 minutes. So please ensure you do your conversions. If your time is given in minutes, ensure you do your conversions to seconds. Even if it's in hour, convert to seconds. Okay? The SI unit of time in physics is seconds. So 5 minutes will become 5 times 60. Since 60 seconds make 1 minute. 5 times 6 should give me 30. And this becomes 300 seconds. So it becomes 300 seconds. So 3 into 20 should give me 6.2 remaining. 6 again. Let's just say 6.7. joules per second. Okay, so I actually decided to pick this example to illustrate every kind of possible condition that can come. So the conditions that are possible is that you are given just mass to calculate for work done, your mass and your distance, and you are expected to convert that mass to force space by multiplying by 10. You can be given a question that you are asked to calculate for power, and you can be given the question for an electrical case, for example, where you are given current and voltage. In that case, power is equals to current and voltage. So power can also be, when we come to electricity, we'll do that. So power can also be IB. Okay? So, but for this class, I wanted us to look at work, energy, and power at basic level. Okay? So if you have any question at the end of this tutorial, please do drop your questions in the comment section below. And if you don't, good and fine, you can just comment on this so that more people can see it. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel. It would mean so much to me. Alright, so that's all we'll be able to take today. It's still the online science tutorial. Thank you once again, and do have a wonderful time in your studies.